just finished. I am here with the entire breakdown. Sorry for being a little late, but we're back at it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay tuned because I've got all the coverage coming up now.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3, dominate.
What's going on, everybody? I'm back here with another video. I just came through from day 5 of training camp. Mariah, shout out to you. Thank you for tuning in, and everybody else in the chat. Day 5 was an interesting day. First day of pads. It's a Monday, and obviously, I think everybody saw Mr. 19 problems. Deebo Samuel was at practice today. Great, great day in terms of that news. I'm going to be here giving you guys the entire breakdown of the 11-on-11 session, the entire breakdown of the red zone session, because the 49ers finally got some red zone action in, and what was good, what needs improvement after a pretty interesting day of install. So remember, the 49ers normally have a strong day, and then on days off, they go straight at it. They don't go straight at it, actually. They have somewhat of a smaller install, and that was the case today. Remember last Wednesday, it was a bunch of short passes, not too much installed. And then Thursday was the day where it completely broke out. Almost everything was a deep pass. A lot more of the install was in play. Well, it's a similar result today. Today was not too much of an install, but Tuesday, tomorrow should be one of the bigger installs. The entirety of the red zone package should be installed by then, and you might see some move the ball action. You might see some all sorts of different action, including the regular 11-on-11 sessions, the move the ball, and the red zone action. So it was an interesting day, a ramp up day for the 49ers. Not too much action in sense of installing the entire playbook. Nonetheless, it was still a good day, a lot to come out of it. So guys, as I do normally, I'm going to first go over all of the 11-on-11 session. Then I'm going to go over the, all the position groups, tell you who did good, who needs improvement, and then I'm going to answer every single one of your questions. So be sure in the chat to drop all of your questions throughout the entire stream, and then at the end, just as I've been doing, I'm going to go through every single one of your questions and then answer them all. So if you have any questions at any point in the stream, be sure to drop it out. And then before I start, got to give a quick shout out to Tanya. Thank you for tuning in. Got a quick shout out to Tom. Thank you for tuning in as well as Chris Polo. Thank you for tuning in. Happy Deebo Day. He said it yourself. Mr. 19 Problems was out on the field. So a good day overall for the 49ers. Give me a minute. I'm going to get everything set up, and then we're going to get right into the 11-on-11 session as I pull up my notes. All right, we are set up, and let's start with the 11-on-11s, which first started not with the red zone period, but the regular period. And it started off with a lot of running. So that's something that you're going to see a lot today. You're going to have a good amount of running instead of the regular, like on Saturday and on Thursday, it was a lot more install with the wide receivers, with the passing game, whereas on Wednesday it was a lot more with the tight ends and a lot more running. Today was similar to Wednesday. So starting it off, let's just read through everything, and I'll give you guys what exactly went down. Day started off with a Elijah Mitchell run. It was a good run. It was a one cut to the inside from the right. It was a handoff to the right side. Mitchell had a one cut to the inside. It was a very smooth run, probably 5 to 7 yards. A good start to the day. Then Lance on a play action pass hit George Kittle coming over. So this was a play action bootleg to the right side. Lance had Kittle, who came in from the left tight end spot, Crossing over to the right side, Lance hit Kittle for a 5-yard pass, and it was beautiful. Same, it's just your Kyle Shanahan action. Kittle was wide open, 15 yards after the catch as well. Trey Sermon came in. He played with the first, or he was with the first and second team. Most of his reps came with the second team, but Sermon got a good amount of run today. He came in for his first rush, 6 to 7 yard gain. 6 to 7 yard gain, as I said. Then JaMychal Hasty came in, had a few yards on his first carry of the day. Then on the 5th play of the first scrimmage, Nate Sudfeld hit JaMychal Hasty on a 4-yard pass. It was out to the side. Dante Johnson was in coverage. Then Trey Lance off a play action bootleg had a 15-yard run. He was bootlegged out, and then he saw the open field and took off. 15-yard run, one of Lance's many runs of the day, and not many designed runs either. Lance scrambled a lot today, so that is something new. And so that was not only in the red zone session, but also in the scrimmage session. You saw Lance running a good amount. As I noted earlier on Twitter, if you guys didn't see, I'll just preface it immediately. Lance threw 5 of 11 passes for today. He was 5 of 11 on completions, had 2 touchdown passes, 1 interception, 1 rushing touchdown, and 1 drop. So I will tell you which plays those were as we go along. But moving on, the 7th play of scrimmage, Tyrion Davis-Price got a carry, and he was tackled for a loss. Rushing on the interior was one of the harder things for the 49ers, as you'll see a theme. Tyrion Davis-Price on the 7th play, tackled for a loss. Kevin Givens and Jordan Willis were in on the action. On the 8th play, Brock Purdy had a throwaway. It was great protection, especially from Sam Schluter, the left tackle on Drake Jackson. But Purdy couldn't find anybody. Receivers had a tough time getting open today. That was one thing you'll see a lot as well. Not as much separation from the receivers. Amazing day in coverage for the 49ers. Even in sustained coverage where it's 5 to 7 seconds long, coverage was holding up. Brock Purdy forced to throw it away. Then on the 9th play, Brock Purdy hit George Kittle, 5 to 7 yards in the flat. Tariq Castro-Fields closed in for the tackle. And again, tackle is just touching, no actual tackles so far. Then on the 10th play, probably the best play of the entire first session, Jordan Mason. He had a carry, ran to the right side. He cut in. There was great blocking from both the right guard and the right tackle on the play. Jordan Mason right now he's a standout in camp. He was one of the better players offensively for the 49ers today. He rushes with a good amount of speed, but also physicality. He's going to be a hard guy to tackle when tackling becomes active in the preseason. Had a good day today, and that was not the only play that he was in. You'll see his name a couple more times as I continue. Those were the first 10 plays of the day. Then came the red zone session. Lance started with an incompletion to Malik Turner, but this, in my opinion, should not even count as a play. The offensive line was not in coordination. Jake Brendel, I believe, was the center at the time. He snapped the ball, and all 4 of the other offensive linemen just didn't move. All 4 of the defenders just went at Lance, and Lance threw it up to Malik Turner, a 50-50 ball, just because he had to. So it was an incompletion. Malik Turner could not come down with the ball, but that was not Lance's fault. That was more on the offensive line for just not being in cohesion between them and the center at the time. On the second play, Kevin Givens beat Aaron Banks, got in the backfield. Lance sets the pressure, pocket presence was good, and he rushed straight up the middle for a 15-yard touchdown in the red zone period. First touchdown of the day for Lance. Then Lance found Brandon Ayuk on the next play over Travarius Ward. Ayuk made a phenomenal catch over Ward, touchdown there. Great protection on the play from the first team offensive line. Nate Sudfeld came in. He hit Deebo Samuel on a 5-yard play. Deommodore Lenoir was in coverage on the play. Then Nate Sudfeld had one of his worst throws of the day, overthrew Ross Dwelley in the red zone section. Dwelley was being covered by Tarvarius Moore. A good throw over the shoulder would have gotten there and been a touchdown, but Nate Sudfeld, he hasn't had accuracy really with his deep completion or incompletions. Lance, on the other hand, when he has incompletions, you sometimes see that there is accuracy on the play. The defense just made a good play. Sudfeld has been overthrowing a good amount so far in the beginning of practice or in the beginning of training camp on these deeper throws. Overthrew Ross Dwelley here. Then Sudfeld missed Tyrion Davis-Price on a 3-yard in route. It was a pretty much an angle route. Tyrion Davis-Price and Sudfeld, though, could not connect. Incompletion for Nate Sudfeld there. Then Lance was facing pressure. Justin Skule gave up the pressure. He threw it. Trevarius Ward, pass breakup there on Elijah Mitchell. Then Lance threw an incompletion to Elijah Mitchell. On the next play, Marcelino McCrary ball was in coverage. Then on the ninth play, Lance sends pressure. He rushed another running play for Trey Lance. Then came in Brock Purdy. He faced pressure from Drake Jackson, who was on there initially, and he had to scramble himself. Tried to look downfield, but couldn't find anybody. Pretty much a 0-yard game. Then Drake Jackson, he was in on the next play as well, got a sack on Alfredo Gutierrez. Drake Jackson was one of the stars of the day on the defensive line for the 49ers, working against the second and third team. 3 pressures, 1 sack for Drake Jackson. Brock Purdy was the quarterback on the play. Then to end the red zone period, Brock Purdy hit Jordan Mason in the flat for a 5-yard gain. So overall in the period, Lance threw for 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and 1 rushing touchdown to begin the day. Good day for Trey Lance, although the interception to Trevarius Ward was not one of the better throws of his day. Overall, he ended 5 of 11. But as I mentioned, 1 throw was a drop, 1 throw was a throwaway. We'll see that in the second section of the red zone period. So in my book, Trey Lance could have been 7 of 11 if you don't count those throws, or 5 of 9, but 5 of 11 overall on the day. Continuing with the second scrimmage session, Elijah Mitchell got the first carry, 1 yard only, though, between the center and left guard. This interior, when you're trying to rush in the interior, there's not cohesion between the center, right guard, and left guard. And that's one of the issues the 49ers have right now. They're trying to put different centers in every time, be it Jake Brendel or Daniel Brunskill, and that's causing a lack of cohesion between Aaron Banks, Spencer Burford, and the center. And why is that important? Well, the 49ers are running a zone run scheme, especially on the inside, where the offensive linemen need to be in communication with each other in a way and make their blocks, because what's happening is they might be blocking the initial guys, but what do the 49ers do in the run game? They have the defensive line, but guys like Fred Warner plug the gap so well and force a 1 yard or a 0-yard gain. And the offensive line isn't communicating well enough to get out to the second level and defend against the linebackers. That's where the interior needs to work on. And it's really just they need to get acclimated with each other, which is why it's imperative that the 49ers find their starting center. Will it be Brendel? Will it be Brunskill? I don't know which one it is right now. They both split them the 50-50, or they kind of split 50-50 today with these center reps at with the first team. But so far, that's one of the issues for the 49ers right now, a lack of cohesion with the first unit. Additionally, at the offensive line, Mike McGlinchey and Trent Williams have been limited. So you see Jalen Moore, you see Justin Skule being worked into the first team, and that's not putting a lot of it's not that it's putting a lot of confidence, but now the left guard and right guard, Aaron Banks and Spencer Burford, not only have to worry about their jobs, but about the right tackle and left tackle jobs as well, because it's not a guy that they can necessarily trust to make a good play in pass protection. But continuing on the second play of the second drive, Lance threw an incompletion. There was a good protection. Mike McGlinchey especially. Mike McGlinchey had a good day today. He gave up 1 pressure, which we'll see on the next play, but Mike McGlinchey held up against Nick Bosa, not once, but twice today. Bosa was dominating on Saturday, but Mike McGlinchey held up well in pass protection today, held up on Bosa today in this play. Lance just couldn't find anybody in completion. Then Nick Bosa hit Mike McGlinchey. Nick Bosa beat Mike McGlinchey on the inside. Lance ended up running out and running for 10 yards. Then Nate Sudfeld came in and off a bootleg to the left side, hit Deebo Samuel, who was running an out route for 21 yards. JaMycal Hasty came in and ran for about 10 to 12 yards on the right side off a good block on Jalen Moore. JaMycal Hasty really, he's like a one-trick pony type of guy. But when he has that one trick up his sleeve, it works pretty good. After the good block by Moore, Hasty just uses speed on the outside, got about 10 yards on the play. On the 6th play of the second scrimmage, Nate Sudfeld threw an incompletion to Malik Turner. Jalen Moore had a good rep on Kerry Hyder. Ambry Thomas was in coverage on Malik Turner, but the ball was overthrown once again. It was about 20 to 25 yards down the field, but Nate Sudfeld has not been good with his deep accuracy so far in training camp. Another incompletion deep for Nate Sudfeld. On the next play, Elijah Mitchell came back in with the starters, and this was one of the better runs up the middle for the 49ers. He had a 5-yard gain up the middle. And then Trey Lance on the next play hit George Kittle, a 3-yard flat. He had to throw it quick as Drake Jackson beat Justin Skule on the play, working in protection. On the ninth play, the best play of the entire day, Trey Lance with good protection from the first team offensive line found Brandon Ayuk, who had beaten Emmanuel Mosley on the right side, for a 40-yard gain, and this could have been a touchdown had it been in another session. But it was a 40-yard gain. Great throw from Trey Lance, right on the money. A deep ball to Brandon Ayuk. This connection has been beautiful to watch so far. These two have really, really hit it off so far in terms of their connection. Brandon Ayuk has been very good over the last 2 days, beating both Emmanuel Mosley and Charvarius Ward on a number of plays. Great job so far for Brandon Ayuk in these last couple of practice sessions. He is getting into the groove of being a true wide receiver one in the NFL. So great throw there by Trey Lance, good protection, and Ayuk made the catch. So kind of a great triage of moments for the 49ers. Brock Purdy came in after that, hit Tanner Hudson for a 5-yard pass. Then on the 11th play, Tyrion Davis-Price had another good run over the middle. A couple of yards was a gain on the play. Then a very impressive play by none other than Jordan Mason. Brock Purdy hit Jordan Mason 7 yards over the middle. He had a good route, beat Leon O'Neal Jr., the third team's safety, and then 15 yards after the catch, using his speed. So he's been very good after the catch so far, Jordan Mason, that is, and seems like a prime candidate to compete for a 53-man roster spot at the running back position so far. That was it for the second scrimmage. Then came the red zone, 14 plays overall. Let's go for it. First play, Elijah Mitchell tried to run it up the middle, only got 1 yard. Fred Warner was there. Then Trey Sermon, similar thing, tried to run it up the middle on the inside zone, only 2 yards. Kerry Hyder was there. Third play, Kevin Givens got his second pressure of the day, this one on Aaron Banks again. And while Brunskill had good protection on Kerry Hyder over the middle, the Givens pressure on Banks forced Lance to get out of the pocket, and Lance was forced to throw the ball away. Then Lance, on the next play, had a throw of his dropped. I forgot who was the receiver on the play. Dante Johnson was in coverage, recorded the PBU, but it should have been a completion. The one drop of the day against Trey Lance. Then on the fifth play, Nate Sudfeld came in on a 7-yard out through an incompletion. Then Tyrion Davis-Price got the football. He tried to run, but had no success on the play. 0 yards on the rush for Tyrion Davis-Price. Charles Omenihu was there on the 7th play of the red zone practice. Tyrion Davis-Price got the ball again against the third team defense and still could not get much out of it. The offensive line struggled to block. Robert Nikomdiche, working against, I believe it was the right guard, got in the backfield, tackle for loss on the play. Then second team offense was back out with Nate Sudfeld. Second team offense had been out with Nate Sudfeld. Nate Sudfeld found Jordan Mason on a 5-yard out. That was Mason's third catch of the day alongside his strong run. Good day for Mason. Then Lance was in. Alfredo Gutierrez was the left tackle, not Justin Skule at this time, and Drake Jackson beat him. Lance was forced to run up the middle. Another pressure for Drake Jackson on the day, who schooled both Alfredo Gutierrez and Justin Skule. Great day for Drake Jackson. Elijah Mitchell got the next carry. He had a short gain, and then Lance came back with a touchdown pass, hit George Kittle on the right sideline. A great throw from Lance to fire it in. Darqueze Dennard was in coverage. Touchdown on the play. On the 12th play of the red zone practice, Brock Purdy was in the pocket, rolled out to his left, and was forced out of bounds by both Jordan Willis and Charles Omenihu before he could make a play. And then on the next play, Brock Purdy tried to find Rayburn McLeod. It was a screen pass, but an incompletion. It was broken up. On the final play of the red zone practice, the 49ers ended it off with a bang. Brock Purdy found Malik Turner working on Quantrez Knight, cutting to the left sideline, and Brock Purdy threw the touchdown pass. Great catch by Malik Turner to end the day. All right, guys. So overall, that was the the 11 on 11 and red zone stats. I will be posting the stats a little later today on Twitter on the final numbers for the quarterbacks. Thank you guys for hearing that. And now I'll get into all the position groups, breaking them down. As I said, be sure to drop your questions in the chat. And as I break down the position groups, I will get to every single one of your questions in the chat. So let's start off with the quarterbacks because obviously they're the most important position on the field. Trey Lance threw 5 for 11 today, 2 touchdowns, as I said, 1 interception, and 1 drop pass. I thought Lance looked good today. He's looking more comfortable, and he's finally, it's not that he's finally, but he's making throws from all arrays in the pocket, out of the pocket. He's making plays with his legs. And so you see the full kind of story with Lance, right? If you try and blitz, he's found a way to evade pressure and run up the field. And remember, Lance is not an easy guy to bring down. And today his speed was on display. He looked pretty good. He looked fast running the football. He also looked composed running the football. Not really many poor throws from Lance today. Of the incompletions, a good amount of them were broken up. It's not like Lance was missing his targets a lot, apart from the interception to Charvarius Ward, which, again, defense has been amazing. But overall, some of the plays by Trey Lance, it's just he couldn't find receivers down the field. So he was forced to either scramble, he was forced to throw it away, he was forced to make a tough throw or something like that. So really, I didn't blame too much of today's inefficiency on offense on Lance. I thought it was more on the receivers for a failure to get open, but also more on the offensive line for failing to open up the run game. And remember, this is the defense that knows the 49ers offense install. So it's going to be tougher for the defenses to stop this team when it's other teams as opposed to the 49ers defense. Good, though. Good day for the defense overall. Nate Sudfeld struggled today. I know he definitely, on the stat sheet, it might not look as bad, but Sudfeld has only hit shorter throws. He hasn't been able to hit the deep throws yet, and that has been an issue because the 49ers install does involve a good amount of deep throws. I was glad that Nate Sudfeld tried to attempt them on Saturday. He had a rough day, 3 interceptions, 7 of 13 passing. I was glad that Sudfeld tried to attempt them because before that, he hadn't necessarily tried to attempt deep passes. He had been a lot more conservative, but the problem is, even though he's attempting them, he's not really completing them with much accuracy or with much results. And that's the one thing that needs to kind of improve for Nate Sudfeld, for him to show that he can be a competent backup rather than just a check down thrower. That's the one question with me, because on the 2 deep passes today, he had 3. A 21-yarder to Deebo Samuel, that was on the money. But the other 2 deep passes were both overthrows. One to Ross Dwelly in the end zone was an overthrow, and then another one to a breaking. I believe it was. I'm forgetting the receiver. I believe it was Ayuk, but I'm not exactly sure. It was another overthrow by Nate Sudfeld. So he has to improve on that. It might not just be Sudfeld. It might be communication with the receiver, expecting them in a different place. But he's been overthrowing the ball a good amount so far in training camp. So that is something to watch. Can Nate Sudfeld improve on his accuracy, especially deeper down the field in the intermediate to deep range? So that is one part about him. Brock Purdy, he's just doing Brock Purdy things. Another guy who's primarily focusing on short passes, not really too many intermediate passes. I've reported a good amount on Brock Purdy's lack of arm strength. I don't think he's going to be QB2. I don't think he's even in the running for QB2, just because he doesn't have the requisite traits that the 49ers covet at the position, and he's not an NFL level quarterback at the moment. While Sudfeld is inaccurate, at least he can make deeper throws without the ball having to take 10 seconds to travel and reach the receiver, which overall hurts it might put the receiver in jeopardy. It just isn't an efficient way to score points and to move the offense. So that's the one issue with Brock Purdy. But Purdy's pocket presence has been pretty good. He's been able to detect when pressure is coming and scramble. He's not as he's a somewhat of a mobile quarterback, despite being small. He's a pretty fine with his mobility. So that's one positive out of Purdy with the pocket presence and mobility. But he right now is definitely the quarterback number 3 and won't make the 53-man roster so far. Let's talk about the running backs. The running backs got a good amount of action today. First day of pads, so running backs were a little more important today than in other days. Elijah Mitchell was the first one, and he looked fine. He was looking obviously a little bigger. He's been looking pretty solid so far, and I think Elijah Mitchell is definitely going to be the not wide receiver, running back number 1 in this offense. Deebo Samuel did not see any action at running back today, but it is expected that Deebo Samuel will get running back carries. In his contract, he has a bunch of bonuses and incentives tied to running backs. So I think Deebo Samuel will get carries. I don't know if it'll be in training camp or not, but I think he will get carries. But talk about Trey Sermon. I was not high, but I was optimistic about Trey Sermon last week after seeing he was taking some of the second team snaps, and I'm optimistic today. I thought Trey Sermon looked pretty good today. He's not necessarily overcutting and trying to rely on his ability to cut as much as just trying to be a downfield runner. I think he's been doing fine. He's been a one-cut running back so far, and he's been looking good. He got a couple of good carries today. I know he got a nice 6 or 7 yard gain, another nice 5 yard gain. Sermon has been the running back number 2. The only question is, can Sermon be a receiving back as well, or can Sermon be a pass protector? Because we don't know if Sermon can be that third down running back at the moment and how many carries he'll get. But in a running back rotation, I think Trey Sermon is going to get a good amount of carries in this offense. He was working with Trey Lance a good amount today during some of his carries, and also working with the second team. Right now, he's RB2 in my eyes. And then let's talk about Tyrion Davis-Price. Davis-Price was all right. He had one of the better rushes of the day. And one thing that is very apparent about Davis-Price is acceleration. You saw it when there's actually room in front of him and the offensive line isn't struggling to contain the defensive lineman in this inside zone scheme. Davis-Price is able to accelerate and reach the second level. However, when that's not the case, Davis-Price felt losses for 0 and 1 yards. Davis-Price, I think his development and his ability to be productive is going to depend on how well the offensive line can sustain blocks for even 1 to 2 seconds a time, and how well they're going to be having cohesion, because then Davis-Price is going to be able to accelerate and get a couple of 4 to 5 or 6 yard gains, because he's a big running back. It's not like he can't be physical. He can be physical. It's just he needs to get the space in order to accelerate. And once he does, he's quick. He's really quick with the acceleration, and that's something to look forward to. Davis-Price has been looking fine. I think he's running back number 3 at the moment, because I think he right now is behind Sermon just because Sermon is a year into the system. Sermon just looks a little better right now. But Davis-Price is no slouch either. I think the 49ers have a pretty nice 3-headed trio with Mitchell getting a majority of the carries. Now, let's talk about the 4th running back. And I'm not talking about Jeff Wilson Jr. I'm not talking about JaMycal Hasty. I'm talking about Jordan freaking Mason. Talk about, man, y'all got to give me some Jordan Mason love, because I've been on Jordan Mason's, I've been optimistic about Jordan Mason. I thought he was going to be the 4th running back. I made the prediction that he would be the 4th running back coming out of OTAs and minicamp. Jordan Mason has looked like an NFL running back, and I am very, very happy with what I've seen. If we're talking about how well running backs have looked, I know it's the initial look. You don't see too much, but Mason has been the best receiver of the bunch. And I don't think it's not that it's not close. It's just Mason just looks like such a fluid receiver compared to the others. And that's not to take away from his talents as a running back. Jordan Mason is quick. He's strong and a physical runner. That is something important in the Shanahan scheme, because guess what? What did Elijah Mitchell really thrive at last year? Yards after contact. I know that's something that a guy like Tyrion Davis-Price is going to be able to excel at, and this is something that Jordan Mason is going to be excel at. He just looks like a guy who wants it, who wants to rush pretty strong. The only thing is he going to fumble? I don't think he will, and I think that's why he's one of the more reliable guys right now on the roster. Jeff Wilson Jr., he's the guy who I said last week was on the decline. He continues to be on the decline. I don't know if he was out there at practice today, because I really didn't see much of Jeff Wilson Jr. Maybe he wasn't at practice. Maybe he's taking a rest day. Obviously, he's one of the veterans. Maybe he's taking a veteran day. But Jordan Mason looks like a better running back so far. I personally put him above Tyrion Davis-Price so far in terms of what I've seen. He's been that good, and I think he should be the fourth running back when training camp cuts are finalized. Right now, if I'm talking about running backs and how they've looked, I'd put Mitchell one, I'd put Sermon two, I'd put Jordan Mason three, Davis Price four, and then JaMychal Hasty five, with Wilson being the worst. I think that JaMychal Hasty, he's fine, but I think, like I said, he's a one-trick pony, and I think he's a little more predictable. Jordan Mason, he can cut, he can run physically, he can run quick, and he can receive. I think that that's all important, and it'll just add to the 49ers running back room, especially at a time where you might need a lot more receiving. Remember, what does Anthony Lynn do? Look back at his LAC days, and I mean with the Chargers. Austin Eckler, one of the better receiving backs. Melvin Gordon even got a receiving role back in Los Angeles. And last year, DeAndre Swift, he was a top 5 receiving running back. You need receivers in an Anthony Lynn type of system. And I think that Jordan Mason is the best receiver of the bunch. I like what I've seen from him. 3 catches today, 1 strong run today. I hope he gets a lot more action as time comes along. He's been looking good. Now let's move to the wide receivers. To me, the wide receivers today had a down day. Brandon Ayuk, outside of Brandon Ayuk and probably Deebo Samuel because he was limited today, I didn't like what I saw really that much from the receivers. I'm not going to blame them, right? It's not necessarily their game. But when you talk, let's first talk about Juwan Jennings. He's not a separator by any means, but the 49ers, when they had Jennings and when they had Ray McLeod and the backup receivers on the field today, they struggled to get open. And that's why the quarterback play, while it wasn't weak or it wasn't poor by any means, that's why it wasn't as good as it could have been, because the receivers just failed to get open. And that was an issue. That was an issue kind of all day. I don't know how, but the 49ers coverage just was able to sustain coverage for long periods of time. That's why quarterbacks, even when they scrambled and extended plays with their legs, could not find an open receiver. So that was definitely something that I saw today from the receivers. So to me, it was somewhat of a down day after some nice days from Juwan Jennings and Ray McLeod, just because they couldn't necessarily get open. And I'm not necessarily blaming them for it, but as much as just because it's not necessarily their archetype, but that is something that just popped out from the eye test for me. Real quick, Cully asks, Rohan has the ball security with our running backs. Guys, remember, tackling is really not happening, so there's no way that the ball security issue is going to be addressed until preseason, pretty much. Because when you talk about the ball security for these running backs, like when you talk about how are they going to fumble, you don't know, because players aren't really trying to hit the ball out necessarily as much. Unless it's a pass, right? Just because you don't want to injure, Kyle Shanahan doesn't want injuries. It's not as hard. So while offensive line play is still is there with Pats, it's you can't necessarily tell the ball security issue until we get to the preseason and there's real live tackling. But I'll get to the rest of the questions in a couple of minutes. Let me just go through the entire offense, get through all the offense questions, and then I'll go to the defense. So let's continue with the receivers. Now, I talked about a little bit of the negative on Monday, which is today, obviously, but let's talk about the positive. Brandon freaking Ayuk, that guy has been special the last 2 days. Brandon Ayuk has looked really, really good. I talked about it on, I think it was on Thursday, how Brandon Ayuk initially has looked a little bit like he struggled against Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley. Well, on Saturday and today, he flipped the switch. Brandon Ayuk was great on Saturday. He had 5 catches on about 7, 8, 9 targets, and he had catches over both Charvarius Ward and Emmanuel Mosley, including the amazing 50-yard catch that you saw where he mossed Charvarius Ward, which was posted by the 49ers. So really, Brandon Ayuk has been one of the better receivers so far. Then today, 2 catches today that really popped out to me, both from Trey Lance. The first one was the 40-yard bomb. He beat San Francisco's second cornerback in Emmanuel Mosley down the field. Great route. The second one, once again, he caught the ball over Charvarius Ward with Ward just being right there in coverage. So great job by Brandon Ayuk. He has been the best 49ers receiver by far on the field so far, and I'm waiting to see how will that connection be with Deebo Samuel when he returns. I posted videos today Trey Lance, he was warming up with Deebo Samuel for his warm up today, so that is definitely something that is definitely something to monitor when Deebo Samuel's activity gets ramped up because he played a lot with the twos today. But Brandon Ayuk, he's been that guy so far. He's looking like he's going to have a breakout season, and he's looking like he's starting off with it from the jump. Kyle Shanahan had nothing but praise for him. The receiving core and everybody else has nothing but praise for him. He's a guy who's looked pretty good over the last 2 days of training camp. That's pretty much it about the receivers. One other note that I will continue to mention that I mentioned on Saturday, Malik Turner seems to be getting a good amount of run. Out of all the other receivers, Malik Turner has been getting the most run, in my opinion. He looks right now like the clear-cut favorite for wide receiver number 6. Over all the undrafted rookies, over some of the other veterans. I think Malik Turner right now is the guy the 49ers like the most. Danny Gray, I honestly think Malik Turner might be a little above him on the depth chart right now, which is interesting to say. I don't think Malik Turner is going to get a roster spot over him necessarily, but he's been a little bit of a better receiver. When you talk about Danny Gray has flashed a little bit, but he's also struggled a little bit. Danny Gray had the nice 45-yard catch, obviously the first day, which was a touchdown pass from Brock Purdy where he just burned Kadar Hollman. But remember, the rest of the time, Danny Gray has been against like the second team cornerbacks and the second team guys, and maybe even against the third team. He struggled with his route running a little bit. He struggled to get separation and struggled to get open. That was an issue that haunted him at college too, where despite he having his deep speed, he struggled at times to get open. And when he wanted to improve on his route running, he had to neutralize his speed to do so. So Gray really has to work through trying to trying to encapsulate the best part of his speed with with the ability to route run as well. Because Deommodore Lenoir has done a good job blocking him down. Ambry Thomas had a really good rep on him on Saturday on a comeback route. And then even on the one catch that he made, it was a slant. Tariq Castro-Fields was all over him. It's not like Gray separated. He just made a great catch. So he's a guy who I think will go through some growing pains, maybe not see as big of a role as early, but hopefully if he can improve that route running, he'll be a key piece for the 49ers offense for years to come. But that's it for the receivers. Let's move on real quick to the tight ends before going to the offensive line. So earlier today and over the last couple of days, I've mentioned who are the most consistent tight ends. Number one, obviously, is George Kittle. But who's been number two with Charlie Warner out? Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews has been that guy so far. He had a catch in every single practice leading up until today. And unfortunately for Jordan Matthews, he was limping today. He landed awkwardly after a catch in team drills, and he was seen not crutching, but holding his left knee and ankle area, and that was one of the concerns. I didn't see Jordan Matthews there during the team drills. I don't know if Kyle Shanahan said anything about Matthews. Maybe they're getting an MRI done or something like that. But he might have sprained his knee or sprained his ankle coming down on that landing, which sucks because Jordan Matthews was the second best tight end for the 49ers so far in training camp. So I'm wondering, I'll go back after this and read what happened and what's going on with Matthews. But that was one of the things. Jordan Matthews, he did go down, or not go down, but he did seem injured and limped off. And I think he went inside. So that's unfortunate. In other tight end news today, Kittle had a couple of passes, as always. Tanner Hudson had one catch today, I believe, from Nate Sudfeld. But overall, not too big of a tight end action day as well. It was overall like the passing game was a lot more distributed because the 49ers were just trying to get different guys out there to catch passes. And so you saw an array of running backs make catches. You saw some tight ends, like I said, make catches, but also some receivers make catches. It was a couple of different names. But tight ends, not too much action today. George Kittle kind of had the play of the day with the 15-yard catch, or sorry, the 5-yard catch and then the 15 yards run after the catch, as well as the touchdown catch from Trey Lance. George Kittle so far has looked like one of Lance's favorite targets. It's been Kittle and Ayuk battling it out for a close 1-2 punch so far without Deebo Samuel. We'll see how the target share gets differentiated when Deebo Samuel's back in the mix. But Kittle so far, good camp. I'll say that. He's been consistent every day, and he hasn't shown any signs of like tiresome or durability concerns or anything. Great start for the camp to George Kittle. let's talk about the offensive line real quick, and then I'll get to every single one of your questions. Thank you all 40 or so of you that are tuned in today. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the chat, for continuously supporting during this training camp process. And let's go ahead with the offensive line. So, starting offensive line looked good. I'll be honest. Starting offensive line looked good. When you have Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey in there, especially with the days that both of them had, both of them were really good today. McGlinchey got beat once by Nick Bosa, but apart from that, no pressures other than that allowed. And Williams was perfect today. And both were pretty good in the run game as well today. Some of those outside runs that you saw towards the left and the right side that went for above 5 yards, that was something else that was something due to the fact that those guys were on the outside. The interior, though, that is the biggest question mark right now. Like I said, they've been cycling centers between Brunskill and between Brendel. So you don't necessarily know who's going to be the starting center for the 49ers. And that is shown because the cohesion between the middle guys, between Banks, Burford, and the starting center has just resulted in a lack of interior rushes. So that is something the 49ers need to fix. And remember, in training camp, how it always goes is the outside run is what works best. Then the inside run gets integrated and then slowly gets better. So that is something important to note. The outside run always does go best, and the outside run looked very good today. So that's a positive in the run game. But pass protection wise, it's so interesting with the offensive line today because I can name one good rep out of every single starting offensive lineman. Like I named a couple of McGlinchey's. Aaron Banks had a nice rep as well. I forget against who. Brunskill had a nice rep against Kerry Hyder. Like I can name a single rep from everybody that was good. The only issue is not all 5 offensive linemen just didn't have a good rep at the exact same time. So always there was at least one pressure on the team or on the offensive line, which forced some like distraction in the backfield, causing the quarterbacks to either throw the ball quickly, to move out of the pocket, or to throw it away. That's the one issue. Can they work together, and can all of them play well at the exact same time, or will it be 1-1-1-1? Because if it's 1-1-1-1, then the 49ers quarterbacks are going to see some issues as training camp continues. And remember, this is one of the best defensive lines in football. And even without Arik Armstead, Javon Kinlaw didn't practice today either. Even without them, they're still one of the better defensive lines. And so that is something to mention, right? But overall, this offensive line unit needs more cohesion. And in my opinion, the best way to do it, have your 5 starters out there a lot more. McGlinchey and Williams, both of them have been limited so far in practice. That's forced Justin Skule, Colton McKivitz, Alfredo Gutierrez, and guys like that to be out there. They're just not that good. They're really just not that good. The edge gets screwed every time. And then when the middle guys try to overcompensate for the edges, something goes wrong. And so you need your starting 5 out there so that, there is something good going on with the offensive line where people can just do their jobs rather than having to overcompensate for other people because they can't trust the other guys on the offensive line. But overall, center right now, still a question mark. Can the interior work with the center? That's a question mark. And when are Mike McGlinchey and Trent Williams going to be practicing in full? That's the other question mark. Offensive line, though, when the starting 5 was out there, especially in the run game on the outside runs, looked pretty good. Pass protection on several plays today, clean pocket. So there are some positives to come out of today. The offensive line, though, still needs a bit of work. We'll see how they improve as training camp continues. I want to say one thing. A lot of you guys probably don't know him, but I want to give a shout out to one backup offensive lineman who has done pretty damn well. Now, you've heard about the tackles on this team behind Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey. You've heard Jalen Moore get snaps. You've heard Colton McKivitz get snaps. You've heard Justin Skule get snaps. You've heard Alfredo Gutierrez get snaps. 4 different guys. This one player, this other tackle, has been better than all 4 players, in my opinion, so far in training camp. That's been Sam Schluter. Sam Schluter is an undrafted left tackle out of Minnesota this year that the 49ers signed, and he's been looking pretty good on that left side. He held up Drake Jackson on a pass rush rep. I think he's been one of the better offensive linemen for the 49ers. He also had a nice run block that resulted in a nice play. on the outside. He's been working with the second and third team. He's been better than Gutierrez for sure. He's been better than Skule, in my opinion. And he's right up there with Jalen Moore, who had a nice run blocking rep today as well. Sam Schluter, underrated name. I think the 49ers should definitely keep him on their practice squad this year. He could be a guy who could be a utility piece in the years to come. But that's it about the offense. I'll go to the defense in a couple of minutes, but let's get to all of your questions. Be sure to drop them. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. As I said, be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit the like button, and be sure to follow me on Twitter. That's where all the live updates come through, and this is where all the breakdowns come through. But let's start off with Big Mike, who asked, how is Spencer Burford in pads? Burford looked all right. I won't say he looked great. I won't say he looked too bad because there were reps where he held up on his own. The 49ers had a clean pocket on probably 5 to 6 plays today, which were good, which were helpful to the quarterbacks. It's just sometimes the receivers weren't open, and when they were open, it was a nice play overall. So Spencer Burford, he looked fine, but he also looked overwhelmed a little bit, especially in the run game when they were trying to run to that right side between the right guard and the center. Not many yards. There was disruption on the interior, just too much pressure overall. But Burford, he looked all right. I'll say that. And right now, he still isn't getting competition at the right guard position. Colton McKivitz did take some second-team right guard snaps today, but I still envision him as playing more tackle just because the 49ers need those guys right now with the two outside guys being limited. So right now, there still isn't any pressure at all on Burford of losing his job because Jalen Moore and all aren't playing at right guard, like playing any snaps at right guard. But so far, Burford, he's looking all right. Is Trey throwing nice spirals or part spiral, part wobbler like last year? I mean, you guys can judge for yourself based on the videos you've seen. I personally don't think the ball is coming out poorly. I think the ball is actually looking pretty nice from Lance. And even if it wobbles a little bit, you do still see the ball going to the exact location that it's supposed to be in the exact time that it's supposed to be. So I'm not too worried about Lance's throwing mechanics, especially. I'm not worried that much at all about it, or his passing. I'm just worried, really. It's not that I'm worried. I'm just looking forward to seeing more and more of a sample size from Lance. Brandon, thank you for tuning in, as well as Cinnamon Kiss Sin. Thank you both for tuning in. Emiliano says, throwing the ball away is already a thing I like to hear. How many times do we wish a 49er QB would throw the ball away when necessary? Yeah, it's a nice thing. Obviously, you don't want to force a play, throw an interception, which former 49er quarterbacks have been prone to doing, right? And Lance sometimes does force throws. Like we can be honest, Lance has forced throws a little bit, but so far most of the throws have been looking pretty good, and most of the decisions overall have been looking pretty good. There haven't been many poor decisions where Lance himself has thrown it into double coverage. Lance has thrown it to a cornerback breaking in. More so, it's been Sudfeld who's been having some poor decisions at quarterback, throwing it sometimes into double coverage, throwing some 50-50 gimme balls in a way to the defense. And so that's something to watch out. Can Sudfeld sustain some sort of can he have some sort of success in those deeper type of throws, or will he continue to telegraph passes? Will he continue to be inaccurate? Ty Olson says it would be cool if Mason makes the roster. I agree. I think he should. I think Mason has looked good enough to make the roster. And I think the 49ers need some rejuvenation in that room, especially to match the backs that they currently have, right? They got a lot of bigger backs now. And if they're going to run more to the inside and more physically, and if the offensive line is struggling a little bit, you need guys that are going to be able to break the first couple of tackles, to break through and at least push for a couple more yards. Mason is that type of person, and I think that he'd be a good addition to the roster. 49ers first takes. Aaron says, what's up, my man? Can't wait to collaborate tomorrow. This is a good time for me to tell you guys just a little bit about the upcoming schedule. Stay tuned today. Today is a busy day. I've got a show with Rob Shue, one of the better 49er content creators, today at 5 p.m. today. And then I've got a show with Jesse Naylor, I believe at 6 or 6:30 p.m. today. So a lot of 49er content coming with you. And then Aaron, I'm on his channel tomorrow, 49ers First Takes, tomorrow, I believe at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. So be sure to be on the lookout for all these different shows because they're going to be a blast. And I'm going to be dissecting the 49ers and how they've done so far even more. Ty Allison says, nice to hear he's using his legs and not afraid to use that mobility. Trey Lance uses legs for the most that I've seen him so far this entire day, and that's nice, right? You're finally seeing the full arsenal of Lance. There have been times where Lance has specifically wanted to stay in the pocket, wanted to make throws rather than taking off, and that's good, right? This is the first part of pads. You want to just try and get your mistakes out of the way, try and make all the different throws you can. But today, Lance was using his legs a lot. You saw the rushing touchdown. He also has had a nice 25 to 30-yard rush a couple of days ago. So he's shown and he's flashed that he can use his legs. He's run pretty fast too. So I think that his legs are going to be an underrated part of his game, and especially with all the passing that's going on so far, this is kind of something that's gone under the radar. I think Lance's legs are going to be a huge part for the 49ers and their offense this year. Brian asks, how did Tabor Pepper look? Long snapping isn't easy. They didn't have too many reps today. It was only in between the what do you call it? In between the two scrimmages. It's interesting. The kicker and the punter don't have that many practice snaps this overall. The kicker gets a little bit while the scrimmage is going on, while the punter he punts in a little bit during team drills to get some of the returners some action. Ty Elson continues. He says TDP needs to get downhill. That's when he's doing his thing. I agree. The acceleration is really nice when he's downhill. It's just obviously you got to focus downhill and have the room, have the capable room to do what he's capable of doing. He didn't have the room at LSU. That's why his stats might be a little lower than you might imagine. But I think he can be a good downfield runner when he's put in that role and given the opportunity with the offensive line. All right, continuing with your questions. Tom here says, I love Jordan Mason. I love the 49ers, the way the 49ers are building this backfield to complement our offense to move the ball and get first downs. That's true. Mason did actually have a first down catch. I forgot to mention that today. One of his catches was on third down from Purdy, and Mason found a way, found the marker, went past the marker, got a first down catch near the sideline. A nice catch by Jordan Mason. Cinnamon asks, what about the offensive line? Hopefully, I addressed that a little bit. If you have another question specifically about the offensive line, I'll be definitely happy to answer that. This is a good question here. How does Tavarius Moore look range-wise, cover the back end? People thought Tavarius Moore might have lost his speed, especially after that torn Achilles injury or torn ACL injury coming back this year. Moore looks like he's regained that speed. He looked good on Saturday, especially. He had 2 interceptions and he was able to move all sorts of ways. I think his coverage at times is still a little spotty, but he's been pretty solid. He's been with tight ends. When he's covering, he's been with tight ends, and I think his athleticism has been on range. If he's not given too heavy of a role, if he's just asked to utilize his athleticism and make plays based off his athleticism rather than overthinking it, I think Moore can look pretty solid and be potentially that third safety in 3 safety looks alongside Jimmy Ward and Talanoa Hufanga, because all 3 of them have different skill sets and all 3 of them could complement each other pretty well when covering the back end. Emiliano here says the defensive backs seeing the same receivers every day is probably increasing their identification ability and seeing the receiver tendencies. I agree. I think it works both ways because you see the wide receivers also learning from the defensive backs. And that's why it's harder, right, between this matchup between the two, because they're seeing each other every day. They know the install, so they can detect the plays a little better than other teams can. So that is another good point to mention when breaking down the battle between the two defensive backs and the receivers. All right, continuing with your questions. Ty Ellison says, if Jordan Matthews would stay healthy, he'd be a dangerous receiver. His route running has been one of the better ones for a safety for the 49ers so far. I personally thought he could have a good chance to make it as a third tight end for this roster, but I don't know what his injury is yet. He was, like I said, seen limping after an awkward landing earlier today in team drills. Zach Greer says he has a hot take. Ayuk will have more receiving yards than Debo. This is a take I've been seeing a lot this offseason. I don't think that it's unwarranted. I don't know. I think people are underestimating Debo Samuel's value as a pure receiver. I still think Debo Samuel's going to have a big year. But remember, he hasn't practiced much with Trey Lance this entire offseason. They didn't practice together in SoCal. It was Ayuk, and it was like guys like McLeod and maybe Jennings a little bit. It wasn't Debo. So Ayuk has the better chemistry right now. Hopefully, Lance and Debo can really work through that chemistry over the next 2 weeks and then be set when the season starts. But Ayuk and Lance, that chemistry so far has been looking really, really good. Kurt the Chameleon asks, so Rohan, the offensive line will pleasantly surprise them. Notice you said they look good. Now, I can't give a definitive response to that question because I haven't seen the offensive line enough with the first team. Like I said, when the offensive line first team has been there, it's looked pretty good, especially in pass protection and in outside blocking, because those guys can just worry about doing their jobs rather than having to worry about other players. The questions I have with the starting offensive line is how cohesive is the unit, because they haven't played enough together, and also we don't know who that center is right now. Is it Brendel? Is it Brunskill? And how will it, when it's all said and done, will they have enough time to figure it out in the inside zone scheme? Because that's something that'll be installed over the next couple of days as well. But so far, I think the starting offensive line, especially the starting tackles, have looked good, and Aaron Banks has looked good. He had a bit of a down day today, in my opinion. Gave up 2 or so pressures to Kevin Givens, but I think so far when the starters are together, they look better than any other offensive line unit. Big Mike asks, "What's up with Jeff Wilson Jr.?" And my honest answer is I don't know. He's looked a little slower in my opinion, and I don't know. We'll see if his vision can be better. I didn't see him too much today. I saw the other 4 running backs that I mentioned, and it's not necessarily a slight against Jeff Wilson. I just think there are just better players right now on the roster at running back, especially when you factor in age as well. With Wilson being near his 30s or already 30 years old, I think this year, that's something else. And so with running backs, with the duration that they spend in this league, I think it's valuable to have a guy with less tread on their legs, especially when it's a physical downfield runner like Jordan Mason. Thank you, Kurt. And as he said, hit the like button. As I mentioned earlier, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe because I'm here every single day after training camp, going straight to it and cutting it up with you guys. So definitely make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and follow me on Twitter as well. All right. Kurt asked another question here. Are the corners going to be able to going to be up to snuff with the 2019 corners? Now, I don't know. A lot of people have been asking me about the comparison of 2022 to 2019. Well, I don't know if the individual players might be better than the guys. Like, I don't know if Travarius Ward is as good as prime Richard Sherman, right? But so far, the unit itself has looked better. You've got the better tandem with Ward and Mosley. They've looked lockdown so far. The only question to me right now in that secondary is what do you call it? The slot corner position. Who's going to be there? Is it Darqueze Dennard? He took over the first team reps today, and I'll get to the defense in a little bit. I'll go ahead. I'm definitely going to go a little over the 1 hour pod today because I want to get through the defense as well. But Dennard took over the first team reps again. It was Dante Johnson on Saturday taking the first team slot reps. Dennard was back in the action. He took all the first team reps today, while Johnson was back at safety, which meant Samuel Womack took all the second team reps. So I think the corners can definitely match up. I think the room itself overall is better because they've got better depth. And I've been liking what Diamondo Lenore so far has done. I think Tariq Castro Fields has also had a pretty good training camp so far. So I think the room itself has the potential to be better. And I think, especially with the defensive line that we have right now with the amount of depth, I think that is something that you might see could eventually be better. The 49ers had a pretty solid pass defense last year. I know it's hard to fathom with guys like Josh Norman in the fold, but statistically, they had the third best defense in total yards last year, and that was with the players that they had. Now, imagine with the upgrades that we have, especially at the outside corner position. I think that the cornerbacks could definitely look better than 2019. Although we'll see, we'll wait and see, because the biggest thing, really, in my opinion, with the cornerbacks, it's not their level of play. Their level of play is amazing, right? Especially the 2 outside guys. It's durability. Travarius Ward missed 4 games last year. Emmanuel Mosley missed 6 games last year. And when you talk about the overall corners, the third guy right now that people really like, Jason Verrett, he's on PUP right now, and he might not start the year. So, can the 49ers be sustainable over a 17-game period with their starting cornerbacks, or will they face their fair share of injuries? That's the biggest question to me so far. I don't know the answer to that because we haven't seen enough. And also, remember, the ramp up period is very important because right now there isn't any tackling. Right now, there isn't too many like physical plays, which will only come in training camp. So hopefully training camp doesn't hit the 49ers hard with injuries because that's been one of the issues that have thwarted them over the last couple of years. Now, real quick, talking about the defense. Let's go to the defensive line. Uh, Defensive line has looked pretty good, right? The entirety of camp, one of the better groups. Today, the standout was Drake Jackson. He had 3 pressures today. That was he's had really 2 really good days of camp. Thursday was one of his better days where he was integrated with the ones. Today as well, he was integrated alongside Nick Bosa on a couple of reps against. Well, it was the backup tackles substituting in for Williams and McGlinchey. Uh, Drake Jackson put him to work. Gutierrez is the guy I mentioned. Gutierrez got worked. He hasn't looked good really this like in the entirety of camp. He hasn't really looked that good. Skule got worked as well. The only guy who really had much success is Sam Schluter, who had a nice pass rep against Drake Jackson. But overall, Jackson was a standout today. I know a lot of fans will be happy to hear that because Jackson, he potentially could take over that starting role when you talk about the pass rushing unit, right? Charles Omenihu has been a guy who the 49ers have been high on. He might slide into the inside, especially if with Ark Armstead and maybe some cycling there. You might see Drake Jackson and Nick Bosa on the opposite edge. And I mentioned this earlier. Jackson did also take, not today, but he took some reps on the interior on Friday. Imagine Drake Jackson and Nick Bosa right next to each other with their traits. You can't have them one on one right next to each other. That's just an amazing duo. And Jackson, so far, he's looked good. Again, he might be a little more raw, but the traits itself are just leading him through, and he's got a good shot at eclipsing the other players for the first team reps. Other news alongside the defensive line, Robert Nikomdiche. He continues to look good. So far, it's been as a pass rusher. Today was as a run defender. He was in the backfield a couple of times with gains of 0 yards for TFLs. He had some nice plays again. Nikomdiche has been dominating whoever's played at right guard so far with the backups. I think Nikomdiche has a good shot to potentially make this roster as one of those one of the back end defensive linemen, especially with the injury to Mo Hurst, because they need some defensive line depth. Nikomdiche, his stock continues to trend up. Some other guys, I thought Jordan Willis was good. And Jordan Willis is not necessarily one of those extremely, extremely talented guys, but he's an energy guy. You saw him chase after the quarterback on several plays. He forced Brock Purdy out one time. He was there as well on another play. Like Jordan Willis is a name that you'll see mentioned a little bit as well. He's on the bubble right now to make the roster. We'll see if he does. He could be a guy he could be a guy who might be on the practice squad, just given that he has the years of service, so you don't have to go through waivers. He might be the top guy on the practice squad, but we'll see. Overall, though, defensive line, one of the better units. And the final name I'll mention, Kevin Givens. Kevin Givens, round of applause to Kevin Givens because he stepped up. No Javon Kinlaw today, so Kevin Givens got the entirety of the action at first. He was the number one defensive tackle, and he was up to the challenge. He beat Aaron Banks twice. He got 2 pressures on the day, forcing some discomfort in the backfield. So Kevin Givens, he's a guy who's definitely making the roster, in my opinion. One of the better players at defensive tackle, and I wouldn't be surprised if he also got some run interior-wise alongside Armstead because he's looked good as a pass rusher so far. All right, this next talk will be a little quicker of a talk. We're going to be talking about the linebackers, right? The linebackers didn't get too much action today. I focused on linebackers a lot last week. So that is something to mention. I did. So if you want to go back and watch some of the streams last week, I talked in depth about a lot of the linebackers, the rotations that have been going on, who was shining out in those rotations. And so real quick, I'll go over what I mentioned. Curtis Robinson was the guy I said as a sleeper pick to make the roster. He's the Mike, meaning the middle linebacker in the second unit. He's been a leader. He's been vocal so far. And while his name hasn't necessarily popped up as much over the last couple of days, he's a guy who could potentially make the roster if a guy like Demetrius Fenning-Fells is moved before training camp, before the regular season begins. So that's something to watch. Out of the three undrafted linebackers, Marcelino McCrary-Ball continues to shine today. I know he was in coverage on a play, and he also was there in the run game. His athleticism, his speed, sideline to sideline is definitely there. He's a guy who I think the 49ers should definitely stash alongside the other two in Jeremiah Gemmel and Segun Olubi. Those three have been a pretty nice undrafted linebacker trio. They might be I think they're good developmental pieces that you might see what you have, especially with D'Amico Ryans, Mr. Linebacker Guru, in the fold. You might see what you have in that group as you continue on. So that is the main scoop on the linebackers. One other thing, Fred Warner is such a good player. Like the way that the 49ers use Fred Warner in packages is very interesting in the run game, especially. So one of the reasons the offensive line struggled is because they failed to pick up guys in that second line of defense in the linebacker unit as they were coming in. Fred Warner was there in the action, forcing some of those 0-yard tackle for loss or 1-2 yard gains, because while the defensive line might be there, the offensive line might be there to defend up against the defensive line, they didn't really have answers for the linebackers coming through. Fred Warner is one of the best at just filling the gap wherever needed and being able to make a play. And I don't have any issues about Fred Warner's tackling, so I'm not too worried at all about Fred Warner. Like when it comes to preseason and regular season, he showed out again, and he proved why he is what he is. As Paul puts out here, all pro Fred. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I'll continue to answer your questions once I finish with the secondary, and then we'll wrap up today's show. Talking about the secondary, the cornerbacks continue to shine. Ward did get it's not that he got beat. He did give up the catch to Ayuk, but really, Ward, anytime he gives up a catch, he's in good position. He's in good coverage. It's just the receiver made a better play on the ball. Emmanuel Mosley got beat for the first time all camp today, giving up that 40-yard pass to Brandon Ayuk. But the duo, again, one of the better duos. Travarius Ward recorded the interception on Trey Lance today. That was I think it's his third or fourth in camp. 11th for the 49ers defense overall. Continues to be the best player of anybody on the field so far for the 49ers. Great job, Travarius Ward. And let me get out my notes real quick because I want to talk about, I see a question and I'm going to address it right now. All right, perfect. I do want to talk about some of the one-on-ones when we talk about the secondary. So the 49ers for the first time ran one-on-ones between receivers against cornerbacks, between safeties against tight ends, between safeties against running backs, and so on and so forth. So look, I'll just read off the reps that happened. So talking about the one-on-ones, Ray McLeod went against Ambry Thomas. Thomas had a good rep. He won that one. Kadar Holman went up against Marcus Johnson. Kadar Holman won the one-on-one. So something to mention there. Juwan Jennings had a very nice one-on-one against Travarius Ward. Juwan Jennings just out-physical Travarius Ward, pushed him away, legally pushed him away, and then went to the left sideline, made a nice sideline catch. That was one of Juwan Jennings' better plays overall since he wasn't as effective in the scrimmage portion. Trey Sermon, unfortunately, had a drop in the one-on-one periods after having a good route. That was one of the downsides of the one-on-one period. Talanoa Hufanga, though. Let me talk about Talanoa Hufanga real quick because I see Ronnie Montoya with a question. Talanoa Hufanga has been a pleasant surprise so far in camp. And by surprise, I don't mean I didn't expect him to play good, but the way that he's playing is good. Talanoa Hufanga, when he first started about it, one-on-ones today, he went up against Ross Dwelley. He was step in step with Ross Dwelley and then undercut the route, intercepted the pass intended for Ross Dwelley from whoever threw the ball. Great job by Talanoa Hufanga on that one-on-one route. He was just right there with the play. And so Hufanga has had questions about how is his deep speed going to be? How is his coverage going to be? How is he going to fit alongside Jimmy Ward? And really, in my opinion, he's erased all the concerns. He had the PBU on the second day on Thursday, intended for Ray McLeod on a great pass from Lance. Hufanga just made a better play on the ball. So far, he hasn't given up a single like really deep catch in coverage. He's played sometimes in the box when the 49ers have debuted three safety sets. You already know he's efficient near the line of scrimmage, but he's been playing a lot more free. My guy, Chris, you guys might know him on Twitter, Black Solutions. He Chris said that Talanoa Hufanga played a lot more free at USC, and the 49ers are allowing him to play a little more free in this case as well. So good start to camp for Hufanga. One sec. All right, my bad, guys, got that out of the way. But Hufanga so far has looked good. In one-on-ones in coverage, he was fine. He really looks like he can cover tight ends if needed. And I don't think he's going to be relied on as much to try and cover the deep route this year. But Hufanga so far, his speed hasn't necessarily been a concern in the role that he's been playing. In fact, he's looked pretty good athletically in the role that he's been playing, which is surprising for some, but it's important to note. And then as well, Hufanga his mental is there. I think Hufanga is one of the more mental guys. And while Tarvarius Moore did have a nice Saturday, I think Hufanga still is the guy to start. So overall, that's really it about the secondary. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to get to all of your guys' questions that you guys just asked, and then we'll hop on out of here. Real quick, before I continue, there are a couple of reminders that I want to give you guys. As I said earlier, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, to be tuned into tomorrow's stream, because tomorrow is going to be, in my opinion, probably the biggest day of camp. Remember what I said about Kyle Shanahan? The 49ers, when they do install, they normally have a slower day on the first day, but that second day is where they try and ramp it up. Last week it was Thursday. That was one of the bigger install days in general. I think this Tuesday, tomorrow, is going to be one of the bigger install days. So you guys got to be sure to stay tuned in, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the updates, because tomorrow is going to be one of the bigger days in training camp. So be sure to check out my Twitter. Be sure to check out here for sure. But also be sure to stay on the lookout for some of the shows that I'm doing today. Like I said, got a show with Rob Shue later today at 5 p.m., a show with Jesse Naylor at 6:30, and then a show tomorrow with 49ers First Takes, Aaron at 6:30 as well. So I'm staying busy. Be sure to stay on the lookout for that. And also, let's get into these questions and we'll figure it out after that. Going ahead to, let's go ahead. All right. Let's find the first question. Big Mike, thank you for your kind words, man. Thank you for saying what you did. But Paul Hope says Samuel Womack. Yeah, Womack is that second team guy right now. He's going to be tested for sure. I don't know if he'll end up winning the starting job in 22 or 23, but Womack so far, he was pushed to the third team, but back to the second team today. Definitely a guy to keep an eye out. Can he be that guy? Can he show enough to start? Because remember, the 49ers, since their outside guys are so good, the slot guy is going to get picked on the most out of any position, in my opinion, for so far. And who are the 49ers playing in the slot this year? Well, you've got in Arizona, you got Rondale Moore, who's no slouch. He's a fast guy. In Los Angeles, you got Cooper Kupp. And so, like some of the top receivers are out of the slot. You see Tyler Lockett play out of the slot as well at times. So the division rivals have guys, but really also other teams definitely have good slot receivers. Hunter Renfrow is a guy who comes to mind in Week 17 when the 49ers play the Las Vegas Raiders. So slot is going to be very important for the 49ers in 2022. Krypton Chameleon asks here, Verrett not available till when? Week 5. This is a good question. At the moment, we don't know. Verrett is currently on the physically unable to play list. I don't expect Verrett to start the year with the 49ers. I expect him to make the initial 53-man roster, but then be put on either IR or the PUP list, which if it's the PUP list, he's out for the first 6 weeks of the year at least. If it's the IR, I think he can come back after week 4. So it will be interesting where the 49ers put him. If the 49ers don't believe he's come along as quick in his recovery, or if the 49ers are confident in their cornerback room and want to stash Verrett for a little bit, they'll put him on PUP. But if the 49ers want Verrett back as soon as possible and he's far along in his recovery, they'll put him on IR. Continuing with your questions. Shout out to Paul. Thank you for tuning in, man. Definitely appreciate you, man. Uh, Cinnamon Kiss asks, why wasn't Kinlaw there today? I don't know. I'd assume it's a maintenance day because a lot of the defensive linemen for the 49ers, they've kind of been doing 1-1-1 in terms of maintenance days. Nick Bosa wasn't there one day last week, another maintenance day. So I don't think it's too big of a worry. Kinlaw, remember, coming back from an ACL injury, and on Saturday had his biggest workload yet. He was getting pass rushing reps, and he was also in during the scrimmage for the first time. So I think they just want to take the recovery as slow as possible, especially because who's Kinlaw right next to? Arik Armstead, and then who's his insurance policy? Hassan Ridgeway. Both of those guys are injured. So you can't afford to lose Kinlaw right now at all or rush his recovery to try and get him to play, especially when it's not as important right now. Kevin Givens has been doing fine. You don't necessarily need the reps right now because you know that Kinlaw's a freak. And while it would be valuable, you don't want to stunt Kinlaw's growth and Kinlaw's development from the injury because you right now you really do need Kinlaw kind of in there with Hassan Ridgeway likely out for a couple of weeks, and Hassan Ridgeway was the guy who's going to replace Kinlaw should Kinlaw get injured. So you right now are a little bit at a lack of depth for a Kinlaw-esque player, and so that's why they kind of need Kinlaw there. I wouldn't be surprised if it was somewhat of a maintenance day. Paul asks, what did you enjoy most at camp today? The return of Deebo Samuel, number 19. He was back on the field. The energy was there. And while he didn't necessarily get as much action in the scrimmage with the first team, it was just a lovely sight to see Trey Lance throwing and warming up to Deebo Samuel today and then trying to get their connection together. That'll be a fun connection to watch for sure when they're both on the same page. Ronnie Montoya, you asked how Huff was. I think I answered that question. Alan, thank you for tuning in for sure. And continuing on, Ty Elson says Ward and Moore will be the deep safeties. Hufanga will be the mid safety in their three safety look. This could be the case. Moore has also seen some time in the box. That was interesting, given that he hasn't necessarily been that great of a run defender. But this could be the case in those three safety looks, where you see Moore and Ward as the deep safeties because of their speed. Hufanga is the mid safety. But one thing I want to mention about the 49ers and their safeties, they love to rotate those safeties around. When you talk about Tarvarius Moore, right, and when you talk about we'll first start with Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward takes 400 snaps in a year. At, like 400 snaps of his time is over the top. 200 snaps are in the box, and 200 snaps are in the slot. That's been consistent over the last 2 years. He's seen similar outlook there. So you need to wonder how are the 49ers going to play at safety when those 400 snaps of Jimmy Ward are not over the top? That's where a guy like Tarvarius Moore could come in, or a guy like George Odom, or even Dante Johnson, who's run with the third team, could come in over the top and help the 49ers out. Bernio Jacobs asks, do you think there's a chance where Spencer Burford starts day one at right guard? I believe so. I think Spencer Burford right now is the favorite to start at right guard, as surprising as that might sound. I think Burford definitely could be I think Burford definitely could start at right guard just because he hasn't gotten any competition, in my opinion, yet. Brunskill hasn't taken right guard reps. Moore hasn't taken right guard reps. The two guys that, or there are three guys that have, four guys, no, three guys that have Nick Zakelj, Keaton Sutherland, and Colton McKivitz. Zakelj was relegated to third team on Saturday. Sutherland is not going to make the team. And then McKivitz has taken most of his time at tackle, and I think he's going to be the swing tackle for the 49ers this year because Justin Skule hasn't looked good. Cal said they were going to ease Kinlaw and McGlinchey from surgery. I think this is true. Both of them have seen limited time when they're out. Kinlaw obviously wasn't there today. McGlinchey, when he's with the ones, he is only for a limited time. You see Jalen Moore and you see Skule and you see the tackles being inserted into the first team, replacing McGlinchey as they come in. Why is it Nick Zakelj getting reps at center? I think the 49ers are just waiting for him to get acclimated to the environment. get him into the playbook. And also, it's not necessarily because of Zakel. I think it's because of the guys that they have there. You have I think he could get reps at center if there wasn't a center battle going on right now, because Brendel and Brunskill take a majority of the reps at center now because they're trying to figure out who's better. And so that leaves extremely limited reps. And you already have Donovan West out there playing center a little bit. And you have West is the fourth stringer. Sutherland is the third stringer. West is the fourth stringer. So you can't have really five centers out there because you're rotating so much that you don't get any meaningful reps. So I think the 49ers are trying to give Zakel the most meaningful reps possible. And right now that comes at guard with the second or third team because center right now is just so crowded for the 49ers. I think that's why. But I think next offseason you'll see Zakel potentially being ramped up to start at center and potentially even be that guy for long term for the 49ers. All right, guys, I think that is all of your questions for today. Hour and 20 minutes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been a blast. I will be back tomorrow. Well, I'll be back later today with my streams with my fellow peers, but I'll be back tomorrow with my training camp coverage. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will catch you guys tomorrow and have a great day, everybody. Peace.